how did you start off with your blog? Blogging about your recipes, and things like that. Because I know that's something that you do. And I think it's so cool that you do that. And sometimes you share.
Yeah. So my blog actually started, I want to say 12 years ago, 11 to 12 years ago. So before I had my children. And it actually started off more so as like how I hated running and how I went into running and moving a lot of recipes from standard food to vegetarian because at the time I was moving over into being a vegetarian. Um,
What made you move over?
it was actually while I was in school.
Okay.
Um, being in school as a chiropractor and also in one segment which I just realized there was one time that I was actually taking classes in both chiropractic and naturopathic medicine and actually doing my coursework in acupuncture. So that was all at the same time.
Mhm.
I actually started looking at all of the different types of diets and lifestyles that were studied. And I said, hey, let me try vegetarian because more of a personal note, my throughout my teenage years and my 20s, I had terrible menstrual cycles.
Hmm.
I never knew when they were coming. I didn't know when they left. I didn't know I didn't know anything if it was going to be a heavy flow, light flow, if it was going to be there was a time where I was on my cycle for 2.5 weeks. There's another time I hadn't had a period in 4 months. So
Now, is this something like hereditary, your mom or your aunts, anybody in your family experienced that?
My aunts, I'm not sure, but my mother did used to tell me when she was a teenager that she would just lock herself up in her room. She would go to school, come home, just lock herself up in her room, and her grandma would say, "Don't go in there and mess with her. She's going through that time." So, but she said her symptoms and everything diminished once she had a kid. And when she told me that, I said, "Well, I don't plan on having children, so I'm just gonna have to suffer with it until I got into chiropractic school and found out about the different diets and being a vegetarian, being vegan. So I said, you know what, let's try it out and see what happens. I think right before that I had tried an anti-inflammatory diet and I had dropped a ton of weight.
Mm.
So I said, well, I wonder if this works with a vegetarian diet. I didn't have as much energy, but I actually started having regular cycles. So once I became vegan, I didn't have hardly any side effects at all. So I
And
kind of,
that's been how many years?
I've been 4 years as a vegan. And then vegetarian, I was on and off vegetarian for 10 years.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I love some of the conversations we've had or some of the things that I see that you're sharing
Hmm.
on your journey, like with your meals. Yeah.
Yeah. So before that, with the blog was actually an offset of Instagram because I was also posting juices. So once I
Mhm.
got on Instagram, I started actually posting like healthier juices that you can make, like with protein powders and things like that. Once in a while, I may post those on there, but most of the time I don't post those anymore. One, because I half the time I don't do them, and two, I don't post them as much because my kids like to drink all my juices. So I don't get a chance to get any. So
Yeah, yeah. What is it like you being vegan in the household? Is everybody on the vegan journey or is it just you and you have to like make separate meals?
that's where it gets very, very hard. I am the only vegan in my house. My kids, they would like to go vegan and they will at times munch on my vegan food. But other than that, I'm the only vegan in the house. My kids, like I said, they dip between mom's diet and what dad eats, which dad is mostly he doesn't eat. He's almost the opposite of me. He eats rice, he eats meat, potato chips, ham. He doesn't really do a lot of vegetables.
Okay.
So I don't know if the kids are starting to see a difference in that because if I make pancakes, let's say I make vegan pancakes, they want mine over his.
Hmm.
And also he goes to bed a lot earlier. He has to take periodic naps throughout the day. Um, and I offer him my food. So I offer everybody my food. It's fine. Sometimes I make enough food where everybody can have some. But a lot of times a lot of times he'll refuse. So the kids will actually jump in and try some of it. So
So you're blogging, and like what do you notice that that blog does for you? Does it bring you joy? Are you getting feedback from people? Like what has it done since you started?
since I've started it, it actually has been more of a notebook for me. So if there's a recipe or something that I want to imitate or remake and I haven't
Mhm.
made it in a while, I actually go back to the blog.
Okay.
I have referred my blog over to because I also have food in there that's actually not vegan because of the fact that I've been 4 years vegan. The blog is older than my vegan journey. So there are times where I'll send a link over to my husband on how to make, I don't know, chicken broth or something. I don't know. So yeah. So we refer back to my blog a lot for that. Has anyone said anything? I used to post it up. So if people say, "Oh, this looks delicious," and I'm like, "Well, here's the recipe. It's on here," but I haven't heard any feedback from anyone on it.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
it's more like a record for myself.
Yeah, like a personal journal for you, but it's actually you made it public.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, we've been trying to get on to, have our conversation. And the last time we tried to get on, I was ill. And I was like, this is so crazy. But I know one of the people who I can ask because I always, and I do believe in medicine, but I always try to find a natural remedy. And so I was like, let's see what Doris has up her sleeve. Like, what does she know that can help me today? And I don't
Okay.
even know like how I got ill. I don't even know how that happened. But I did try some of the things you said as far as with making your tea.
Hmm.
And then over time, I believe, it helped a little bit and I cleared up. But I was like, oh my God, this is stopping us from having our conversation. So we finally were able to get on. Now, how often do you, make that specialty that you make?
Uh, that actually, I make the tea. First off, how did you feel after that? How long did it take the progression of time before you started being like, okay, I feel a
Honestly,
little better?
yeah, honestly, probably a day and a half or so because,
Okay.
I had the symptoms of I was very, very hot and cold, going through
Mhm.
hot and cold. Then the next day, runny nose. And so it was like different each day.
Right.
Yeah, but it was, it was good. It felt good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the tea, you know what? I make that anytime because I'm always checking if there's any colds going around. I talk to the moms in the at the school in the neighborhoods. Sometimes I'll get it in passing where like the one of the teachers I'll have to say, "Oh, well, my son, he can't go to school because of this." And the teacher
Hmm.
will say, "Oh, well, a lot of the kids got this." So, a lot of times if I'm noticing that I'm seeing that even in the playground, if I'm seeing the kids playing at their school when I go pick them up and I'm seeing them coughing and this and that and all of a sudden I start seeing that in my kids, I'm like, "Okay, it's time to make this tea." So,
You're always
usually
on
it's
high alert.
right. So it's not even like, "Oh, I do it every April or at this
Hmm.
time." No, it's basically based off of the environment and the surroundings if it's looking like that. If I'm noticing a lot of my patients are canceling here in this office or even in the office in Chicago, I
Hmm.
I'll start seeing that or just because the way my life is set up and working, I can't get sick too often.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Not the
so yeah,
doctor. Like, what are we gonna do if the doctor is sick?
right.
Yeah, yeah. So there's so many things I know just from knowing you personally. And we go way back. You're like an auntie friend to me because you are my aunt's best friend.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
my
how
twin.
right, how cool is that? And there's so many things that matter to you and on have conversations that matter. We talk about things that matter to us personally. We talk about things that concerns us. And I just want to know, like, what is something that has really been on your mind lately? A concern for you.
My concern is right now just being able to have everything scheduled. I've been having this conversation today where I don't know if I'm necessarily saying no more or I'm getting more questions thrown at me where I'm noticing the yeses over the nos.
Mm.
So, as I went to a PTA meeting yesterday and they said, "Well, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm good." And I started telling them, okay, I can do this and this with the PTA, but must let you know I have 4 jobs. I have a practice. I have kids. I just am mentally realizing I am actually on a board at a historical society, um, Chamber of Commerce, volunteering, just a lot of those things. Just being a mom and running your house itself is crazy, but I have a practice as well. Plus, I have these other jobs, and
Mhm.
now I'm looking at these other commitments. So, being able to prioritize and just schedule and set up everything and have it to where I know just everything is kind of streamlined in one calendar as opposed to numerous ones so that you don't end up late or you don't end up this way or that way. You
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make that time. So,
Hmm.
just that now is starting to kind of hit me in my
Hmm.
head. So that is something that is a little bit of a concern for me because if you missing out on one thing, you're definitely going to end up neglecting something else. So,
Yeah. So prioritization, like how how are you prioritizing your schedule? Giving all these things that you have going on, these are great things that you have going on, but how do you prioritize it? What does that look like for you? And then balancing that with not just doing all the things, but also just resting and making sure you have time for yourself.
right. Uh One of the greatest things, of course, is the spirituality. That's one of my biggest things is the spirituality, just being able to pray. As soon as I get up in the morning, I do not pass go, don't collect $200. I'm praying. So
Mhm.
right when I wake up, right when my are open, I'm praying. And the same thing at night. So I've made that a huge priority. Like I have to do it. And then everything is kind of stacked after that. So once I get that done, um, then the next thing is okay, let me look at my schedule. So I
Mhm.
grab my most of my schedule is on the phone, like most of us. Most my schedule is mostly on the phone, where I'm like, okay, I said I was going to do this. I said I was going to check on this and this and this. So I program all of that in there as a checklist. I try to do at least 4 major things onto my checklist on my phone. So I have 4 things that I have to do throughout the day. And if one gets missed, then I change it to the next day.
Okay.
So, um, what's another thing that's high priority? So, I have this thing where I actually try to work out when I'm in the kitchen cooking.
Okay. Like, what
Like,
does that look like?
right, trying to combine stuff. So, if I have to get a pot or pan that's in a lower shelf, I'm squatting down to do it
Okay. Okay.
instead of actually just bending over to do it. So I'm doing a lot of squats throughout the day and just bouncing around. So sometimes I'm actually like sore and I have no idea why, but it's because I'm
Moving up. Yeah. Yeah. You intentionally moving around. Yeah. I similar to me. I do some things like that, like just to make sure that my body is moving every single day. Yeah.
yeah. And then of course it's the 3 or 4 schedules that I have to kind of try to sync together to make sure everything is where it should be. So
Hmm.
it's becoming I'm getting to the point where now it's starting to fit together. Now we have a method and a system, but it wasn't like it happened overnight. We have been trying to work on schedules and things like that since last year when I started my practice. So
So what do you feel like the schedule does for you? Like when you didn't have like a set schedule, how were you versus now you have a set schedule every day, you know, you're waking up, you're doing this, you're doing that, and if you can't do it, you move to the next day. So like how has that changed you?
Oh, I was missing stuff. I was missing stuff. My daughter wanted to do Girl Scouts. She's not in Girl Scouts because last year I didn't have that schedule straight. So I missed the meeting to sign her up for Girl Scouts. Um, Tired, exhausted, upset,
Mm,
frustrated. So now it's a lot easier now. So not 100% out of the clear because we still have emergency things that happen because one of those four jobs is actually, oh, here's a rush case. You think you can get this done? So remember how we were still setting up this morning and I was like,
yeah,
wait a minute, I'm doing this. Ugh.
yeah,
So yeah. So
yeah.
there's still a few potholes, but for the most part it's getting managed a little better. So
You spoke about motherhood, and so you stated earlier like you didn't plan to have children, but now you have two whole beings that you are raising and managing and guiding in the world.
uh,
What does your motherhood schedule look like? How are you making personal time for them?
um each of my kids, because they are very different. I see them just as little people. So it's not so with my daughter, her I noticed I have this check-in time with her. Like if
Okay.
she's starting to get frustrated or fussy or upset or my husband's complaining, she's, gosh, she keeps yelling at me or whatever. I'm like, "All right, Genevieve, come on. Bring it in. Bring it in." So she just needs snuggle and hug time where I'm
Okay.
just holding her, cuddling with her, we're sitting on the couch. Like that's her thing. Like that helps her connect with me. My son, I have to bring up something that interests him and then let him go. Just for the races. Just give
Yeah.
him like 15 minutes for him to just talk and get it all out.
Right,
And he's
right.
good.
Yeah.
With some
Yeah.
hugs occasionally. He gets occasional hugs.
Yeah.
He doesn't need it as much as she does, but he's like, okay, I got this in my head. I got to get it. I'm like, why don't you write it down? No, no, I want to tell you. I want to talk about this.
Hmm. Yeah. So he wants to talk about it in that moment.
Right. He's got to talk about it now because he will forget. He does not want to forget. He wants to tell me now. I'm like, why don't you write it down so you have it recorded so you can see how wonderful your mind is? And he's like, nah, I don't want to write that
Did you
down.
say write it down and have it recorded?
Yeah.
No.
He says some very intelligent and fascinating things. Like what's in his head is just amazing. Like
Yeah.
but he's always been like that. Even when he was like 4 or 5, he wanted to talk to me about carbon.
Mm. He kind of sounds like you because you have a lot of you have a lot of things that intrigue you. That
Yes.
intrigue you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your mother have to put you on a schedule like, okay, we're gonna talk about this at this time. We can do this at that time.
Um, no, because with him, I kind of am a little bit more free spirited with him.
Hmm.
Where my mom, it was if I noticed that she was like exhausted and she was just like, oh, I'm gonna go in my room and go to sleep because all these people drained me at the post office. Like I would just kind of give her space. There was a time where we would come home and we would just go through the book of Proverbs after I got out of
Hmm.
school and discuss it towards life.
Okay.
So
Okay. So that's where your faith comes in and the prayers and how that's
mhm.
became a foundation in your life.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why you prioritize it on a daily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Well,
do you find yourself doing that with your children?
I do. They're scheduled to be in bed at 8:30. So if they can get in the bed, I tell them if you can get in bed by 8:15, I'll read a book, I'll read a story, probably a Bible story. They for some reason they really want me to do the Bible stories.
Okay.
So we'll go through a Bible story and we'll pray. Um, and then that's that's how I prioritize that. Also, they hear me run around here like regular typical black mama and, singing Christian songs and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So
You in the kitchen cleaning up, sweeping, singing?
yeah,
Yeah,
they got that this morning too.
yeah.
I was playing Corin, was it Corin? I'm trying to remember her last name. I don't know why I can't remember her last name, but she came out with a recent song, and I just started listening to all her songs. I think she got one with Tamala Mann. So,
Okay.
and I was just playing that all this morning. So
All
they were
the,
getting ready. Yep, they were getting ready and running off to school with that. So,
yeah, yeah. What are some other things that are of concern for you today that really matters? And in a way that you feel that you want to share with our audience, to put it on their mind. Maybe they should be concerned about it.
mental health. So mental health, as opposed to post pandemic, and I'm saying that with quotation marks, post pandemic era. Right now, they're showing that more people are getting increased. They're getting higher rates of diabetes, um, lower fertility issues,
Hmm.
increase in cancer, increase in mental health issues. I mean, all of us can sit here and say that they've seen somebody driving just a little bit more crazy than usual in the car, going to work or going to the grocery store, whatever. So that's a concern for me. Is are we taking care of ourselves? Which that seems to be a big theme. Are we taking care of ourselves enough to where we're taking care of our mental health and avoiding some of these issues and topics? So that's, and one of the aspects and areas of that is what we put into our bodies as far as food. They've
Hmm.
done studies prior to the pandemic of schools, like inner city alternative schools, where they just changed what the kids ate for lunch. So they stopped giving them Cheetos and everything else in the processed foods, and they gave them more plant foods or whole foods. Like you could look at it and be like, "Oh, this is a steak, or this is a piece of chicken and some carrots or something." And they noticed that there was a decrease in fights in the school and
Mm.
attitudes and personality and bad personalities and things like that within the school. Um, so I think that's something that we should start to take note of, and the fact that food is actually inflating in cost. Now they're saying that that's a luxury item. So I think it's time for everybody to start learning how to do gardening and going back out and creating a garden, even if it's what we used to do when we lived in Chicago, which was we had pots and we had our tomato plants and peppers and everything else in little pots outside
Yeah,
on our deck in Chicago. So
yeah. That is definitely a goal of mine to have this big, big, beautiful garden in my backyard.
mhm.
I know it's gonna happen. That is like a life goal for me, and I can't
Yeah.
wait. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna have to get some of your tips. You're gonna have to come in my garden, but yeah.
Shoot, I'm sitting up here with just talking with my aunt. I got my aunt, she lives in Milwaukee, and she's got a garden back there, and I
Hmm.
periodically call her and we'll chat it up about what she's doing in her garden. She helps to boost my son up because he liked to garden, but he just
Okay.
hasn't been doing it as much.
Yeah.
So all he's been doing is hoarding seeds. So I'm like, you have to plant those eventually, sir. We've got to pull these weeds up and get in there. So
Yeah. Can you tell us the benefits of and you did with that as far as the students that is I would love to dive more into that. You have to share some of that research with me.
the one reference, I'll see if I can find it for you. I've actually got that one. That one was years and years ago. I got that reference about the schools.
Yeah. But can you
Okay.
tell us the benefits of having a plant-based diet?
The benefits of having a plant-based diet, I'll go by myself personally, what I've noticed.
Hmm.
Um, how I discussed earlier, how my cycles actually started normalizing with the vegetarian diet. Well, with a plant-based or vegan diet, um, I don't have as many PMS symptoms. If I do, there may be one or two, if any. Um, that was the biggest kicker right there, was that I have an abundance of energy.
Hmm.
There have been times I have had only about 5 hours of sleep and wake up refreshed and perky and happy as your aunts will tell you, I will call her in the morning. I'm like, hey, and she's like, ugh,
Yeah.
why are you
And
talking
the funny thing is you're already naturally like that. So I'm sure we get a double dose of it because of what you put into your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You have another benefit of it?
The other benefit, if it's solely plant-based and not like the processed foods,
Mhm.
my skin actually is a little clearer. So I think I was running around here with a bump recently because I was eating chips. But yeah, I think it's almost gone. So
Not
so
you
yeah,
freaking out about the little bump. Yeah.
it was right there on the side of my head. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh
But
gosh.
that is, yeah, like I find myself doing that, especially I've been making sure my skin has been on point and I have this skin routine.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, anytime I see something, I'm like, this gotta go.
Yeah.
This gotta go. We gotta keep this skin right.
Right, but we're not supposed to pick on them, which is they say don't pick if you got one of those, don't pick on it, but it's hard because it's
Yeah.
there and it like taunts you.
And it's like, yeah, like why did you come? Yeah. Yeah. That diet is definitely important.
Oh yeah, one of the other benefits that someone else noticed about a plant-based diet is they had asthma and their asthma cleared up.
Mm, that's good
So
to know for people
yeah,
who have asthma. Yeah,
yeah,
I haven't heard of that. I definitely heard of those many benefits of a plant-based diet that you
yeah.
share. But that's a good one to know.
Hmm.
That's a
Yeah,
good one to know.
I never had asthma, so I can't really say. So that's why I said this was someone else, and she's actually an influencer here in Chicago. She's a vegan influencer here in Chicago, so she constantly credits the fact that a plant-based diet has helped her with her asthma symptoms. This might be too much, but I have a patient currently who has chronic kidney disease, and they actually
Mhm.
labeled her at end stage renal failure. She is on dialysis and felt terrible for the first month. She got into a group, started going plant-based, so vegan, and she's still on dialysis now, but she puts in 3 miles walking daily.
Hmm.
So she has a lot more energy. She's working, she's going to school, and she goes in for dialysis. But she said after the dialysis, she's terrible after. Um, all her all her blood work, her readings, so her creatinine, her albumin, all of her different levels that are usually measured to see the health of the kidneys are actually improving. But her doctor won't tell her where her kidneys are functioning at. So right
Hmm.
now she's looking for a new nephrologist, but she's been on a plant-based diet
Okay.
and she's seeing improvement. And also she's bouncing around. Like when I saw her and moving and walking and talking, she didn't behave as you would think from someone on dialysis, which usually in
Yeah.
dialysis, people are a little slower. They're kind of they just seem a little weaker because you've got a system doing what your kidneys should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You were gonna bring up, you were talking about your vegan journey. You wanted to dive more into that.
yeah. So some of the questions that I've gotten being vegan is,
Mhm.
um, what do you eat? So one of the bigger ones is what do you eat? You don't get enough protein. And I have a running joke in my house that I am weak. So we have the joke like you hit like a vegetarian. I don't know if you've
Okay.
ever seen that movie, but there's a movie where we say you hit like a vegetarian.
No,
So
I haven't. But they're saying that because they say you don't get enough protein.
right, I don't get enough protein, but there are actually plant sources of protein.
Yes.
You can actually get protein, some protein. It's small amounts, but you can get protein from spinach, broccoli, um, oats. Actually, is a huge one. Beans, lentils, um, legumes. Uh, Quinoa is another one. That one is a huge one. Some seeds. So or what is that? Chia seeds is actually one of the main things. I'll put it actually into my oatmeal. So I did that this morning where I put it into my oatmeal and stir it up, and that actually gives me 15 grams of protein just from that.
Mm.
So I do get a sufficient amount of protein throughout the day. Um,
And you're the person that's counting the grams and all of that?
no, actually, I don't. I looked it up and I go from there. So a lot of times, whatever my body is craving at the time, I'll try to eat it. So,
Yeah.
like, there'll be most times than not, if I mention it, I'll start wanting it, which is beets. I don't know what beets are supposedly nasty, but I love them and they're delicious. And I'll put them in a salad or I'll boil
Well,
them and I'll
I've
just
drunk beets before, but I've never gotten further than that.
right. Yeah, I'll sometimes shred them very thin and put them in my salad. But if you're following or have seen any of my salads, because I'll post them up on Instagram a lot, they're pretty huge. They're pretty huge and they've got a ton of things in them. It looks like I've probably thrown everything in the kitchen in my fridge into this salad. So
Salad. Yeah, I can admit when I make one of those type of salads, I'm full. I'm actually
Mhm.
full. Yeah, it's very fulfilling. When
Yeah.
you can add walnuts or many different things to it, and it can be pretty fulfilling.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I've chatted with the person who comes in and does massage in my office. I was chatting with her of some of the things that I wanted to do that I have not done yet as far as food. I actually wanted to see about making like hamburger patties.
Mm.
Hamburger patties. It's not really
Hmm.
hamburger. It's either mushroom and walnut or lentils and walnut to kind of put them together into a patty and either grill them or pan fry them throughout the summer because my goal is to actually pull away from anything Impossible Burger or
Okay.
Beyond Meat because I've usually around Memorial Day I'll get like brats or something like that because I'm from Wisconsin, so that's my like homage to home state. I'll actually get those brats and then I'll poke holes in them and just saturate them with beer for a couple of days and then I grill them. So I have beer brats, vegan beer brats. So
Really?
mhm.
So you
I think
really get creative with with your food.
yes.
Yeah.
I do. I've before being vegan and vegetarian, I was not a big foodie person, but now I've gotten very much into food. So that's why I was like the substitutes, like beans and lentils, like how I just said, the burger with walnuts and lentils to kind of mush them together and add even a egg replacer on there to kind of to bind everything together, just to be able to make that patty. So
Hmm.
it's just
And
substituting
so
with
you
other
were
food.
a foodie before it kind of was popularized on social media?
No, I would see people talk about restaurants and things like that. And of course, I live in Chicago. So this is like, then I lived in Chicago. So that's foodie central.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah. But becoming vegetarian and vegan, it actually brought that out of me because that was like my challenge and mission to find these vegetarian and vegan restaurants and try the food.
Now, what's the best place in Chicago? One of the, and I've never tried any of them there. What's the best, one of the best places?
That depends on what you're looking for. Particular style of food. If you're looking for soul food, um,
Well,
and
we're
this is
talking about particular vegan food because you're vegan.
right. No, I mean vegan soul food, like
Oh, yeah,
vegan food in
yeah, yeah,
particular.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, my vegan soul food go-to is Soul Vegan. It's on 79th in Indiana.
yeah. Okay.
They have a hot bar, which that is every time I go in there, that line is packed because they make this macaroni and cheese that is delicious. It
I'm gonna
is
have to go
so
there.
good.
I've tried vegan
Yes.
soul food one time from a chef in Milwaukee, and it was amazing. It was pretty good.
Yeah, there's one place in Milwaukee my aunt has been telling me about. I can't remember where it was, but she keeps sending me messages like you need to come to this spot. So once I step away from all the jobs and practice when I go to Milwaukee, I do want to check that
Right.
place
Because
out. I
you
have
have
to find it though.
11 jobs.
Right. I got 13, 15, 18 jobs,
Mhm. Share with me one of your favorite meals.
Um, I don't no. I do like when I make a spread, when I
Mm-hmm.
have the time and the money and the resource where I just make an entire spread and I've stretched it out through a couple of days. So usually my happy food times are Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Okay.
Sometimes Juneteenth and sometimes the New Year's. So there are a few recipes that are like my white rabbits that I haven't done yet. So like New Year's Day, I think they have it's Haitian Independence Day and they have this pumpkin soup. And I see these people make it and it looks delicious. It's pumpkin soup with I think peanuts. Peanuts is in it. It's like a peanut
Mhm.
pumpkin soup. It's got some name to it, jomu or something like that. But I see every year somebody makes it. Some vegan influencer makes it vegan, and I think it's traditionally vegan, and it just look
So
fire.
that's
So
something you have to try.
yes, that is
Yeah.
something I have to try. But yeah, usually around the holidays where I have to make more than one food item, that's where it's good for me because then I do my research beforehand. I got to figure out if I got all the right ingredients that I need. Um, Another white rabbit food is making vegan scrambled eggs
Hmm.
because I stopped using just egg because also I found out they are using it's in a facility that has real egg in it. So
Okay.
they've actually slapped off the vegan label. So any black vegans or any vegans period that want to try just egg, just know that it's not vegan friendly anymore.
And
So
when did you find that out? Most recently?
this was recently because they took it off the shelves. So I noticed they took it off the shelves, and occasionally I would like get like a croissant, like a vegan croissant from Whole Foods if I wanted to make something really quick, and I would make the just egg and scramble it and put it in there. So I would have like a croissant egg sandwich that was
Hmm.
vegan. All of a sudden they took it off the shelves. It used to be $5. They took it off the shelves and then they brought it back and they said, "Oh, we gave you more." And so I'm looking at the box because I'm vegan and we have to stare at every single product that comes out to see if is it still vegan? That's the
Yeah.
next question. Is it still
Yeah.
vegan? Is it healthy? Did they add more stuff to it? What did they do differently to it? And they made it bigger, but then it doesn't have V on it. So it wasn't approved by a vegan council or whatever. And then
Okay.
if you look in the back in lettering, it says that it's made in a facility that has dairy and eggs.
Hmm.
So time to cut that out.
Are you a part of a community of people living a vegan, plant-based diet lifestyle?
Actually, I am.
Okay.
And where I am in my career, I kind of have to be.
Okay.
I'll touch on that in a second, but social media has been a big help with that. There are so many groups on Facebook and Instagram for vegans. And I saw this floating around, so I can't quote it, but it said that the largest group of people that are turning vegan is Black women.
Mm.
So they're out here chefs. They're just making stuff that is what we normally would associate with soul food or something that, only black people would eat.
Hmm. Hmm.
They're out here finding creative ways to make it vegan. So I'm in all types of different groups with that. Also I have one friend of mine. We're vegan and our her schedule's busy too. And we try to find places just here in DuPage County, which is the county just west of Chicago, which is Cook County. We try to find all the food places. Anytime we go out with our group of friends, everyone else is not vegan. So
Hmm.
both of us are sitting here like hawks trying to figure out what on here is vegan. And we're like, who gonna mention that we vegan? So for some reason, it's like a greater deal when it's numbers as her and I, as opposed to if she went to the event and I didn't go,
Hmm.
or I went to the event and she didn't go.
Yeah.
So it does help when you have when you have friends and even supportive friends that will help you through it. Because I have a couple of friends who are not vegan and They just want to see what I'm eating and they want to try it as well. They're like, you know what? I'm overweight. You look like you have not gained any weight. So let me try what you trying and see what happens. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's beautiful to hear this whole wellness lifestyle that you're living, professionally and then even personally. You decided to do that. And you have anything else to share about what matters to you?
uh so now I'm gonna jump back because I put a pin on something that I said a little earlier,
Okay.
and it's the professional journey. So I am actually logged in or signed into a website. I think it's called Professional Choice. I'm not sure if that's the actual name of it, but it's through Forks Over Knives where you can sign on as a plant-based provider. So I am actually considered a plant-based provider.
Mhm.
While I'm talking to you, I am also getting ready to do testing to get a diplomate as a chiropractic internist,
Okay.
which means I also consult with people about their lifestyle. So not even just the
Mhm.
diet, but exercise. Let's look at your blood work. Let's look at your urinalysis. Let's look at your stool samples. Let's check your allergy levels. What are you allergic to? What are you sensitive to? Um, with that, you have to go to symposiums and you get to hear speakers and you get to learn and talk with other chiropractors that are like you, and a lot of them are not for plant-based diets.
Now, what
Um,
made you, before you continue, what made you decide to go further in this?
because of what I'm seeing on that end with these professionals of there's a lot of holes in the argument. So while I was going through my courses, my instructor would tell me, okay, if you're vegan, it's probably the worst thing to do. You have a low white blood cell count.
Okay.
Well, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But then mushrooms, which is a huge part of many plant based vegans' diets, that actually helps to increase production of white blood cells, which is what you need for battling colds and even battling cancers. So it's just interesting that he said that and it's low for a vegan, but I'm like, why is it that way? So I'm diving into why is this so? And if I'm told on one spectrum where I saw the, forks over knives when I was in school, and they said how plant-based vegan diets are amazing for us, but in the same aspect, this is saying it's not. Well,
Hmm.
why is that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I am plant-based. I also do
Leave it
recommend.
to Doris to get down to the bottom of it.
Right. That just you sparked my curiosity. Now I'm going to challenge this and I'm going to find out why is this so?
Yeah.
Why is that the case? And why do you feel this way? Like I had one of my reps tell me, he's like, "You're vegan?" And I said, "Yes, I'm vegan." And he said, "Oh, are you doing it for environmental reasons or health reasons?" I hope you're doing it for environmental reasons. Like just totally brushing off the health part of it. So that's why I'm like really curious and I want to know why. I am for the Mediterranean diet and the anti-inflammatory diet. I've actually tried the anti-inflammatory diet before and I am a advocate of that. So I don't want to let people think that okay, you come in here, you got issues. I want you to go vegan. No, I'm not going to make you go vegan, but I am going to see if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Let's find the healthiest alternative to that. And to me, that's the anti-inflammatory or the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
So,
Mhm. Got it.
but we're not slamming vegan while we at it. So
It's still the way to go.
it's still the way to go for me right now. But
Hmm.
the other ones, no, I'm not slamming those other diets either. But also the carnivore diet, which they were promoting that at the symposium last year. Like this guy was like, I dropped all this weight on the carnivore diet. I'm like, okay, why is that? But the only other common thread I can find about all these different diets is that processed food was not one of the things that was recommended.
Hmm.
all of these processed foods are not recommended. So let's take out the processed foods and then we'll go from there. You want to eat meat? Okay, let's try this. Do you want to just do vegetables? But you should eat vegetables, period. I don't care who you are. The carnivore diet, I'm trying to find my way to liking it somehow and finding out the niche to it, but I ain't finding it just yet. So
Yeah, yeah.
give me a minute to talk about that one. Okay, a year. Give me a year
We're,
to
we're
talk
gonna
about
come
that.
back to that one.
We'll go back to that one. I'm not on it, nor do I want to try it, but there's some benefits. I don't know what yet.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Doris, for all your resourceful information and for sharing what matters to you.
Yes.
Thank you for coming
So
on Have Conversations That Matter.
thank you for having me.